On August 13, 1993, it was a Friday. That night, Trisha was out with her friends for a dinner party to celebrate their high school graduation, as each of them would be going to different universities and starting new lives. At 1 a.m. that night, Trisha dropped each of her friends off at their homes and was supposed to return to her home as well. She did reach her home, but she didn't make it inside alive. Hello dear viewers, today's topic is about a criminal who evaded justice for 15 years and is considered somewhat clever. Before we begin, we want to let you know that 99% of our viewers are not subscribed. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it makes us very happy and supports us a lot. Enjoy watching. Our case will start in 2001, specifically in Los Angeles, the American city known for its famous Hollywood. Let's get to know Ashley Allerine, who was 22 years old and residing there. Ashley is a student majoring in design and fashion. Her friends describe her as a strict person, always focused on her goals, not letting anyone distract her. She was determined to build a very strong career in her field. Based on that, she was studying at the Los Angeles Design Institute, in addition to taking extra classes from the University of California. She also worked part-time to cover her expenses, working as a dancer, meaning her days were always full and she never had any free time. The house she lived in was a shared house with one of her friends, and the location of the house was very close to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Due to the place she lived in and her connections, she was able to personally reach Hollywood celebrities. She even dated Vin Diesel for a short period, and later she also got involved with Jeremy Sisto, who took her with him to shoot one of his movies. In December 2000, she met a 23-year-old actor named Ashton Kutcher. This was the period when Ashton's fame was just beginning, and the TV shows he appeared in were trending, making people increasingly know and love him. They met through mutual friends, meaning she knew someone who knew him, and that person introduced them, and things went well. Now, let's go back to February 21, 2001. On that day, Ashton had the Grammy Awards, and after the award ceremony, he was invited to an after-party. On the same day, he talked to Ashley and promised her that he would come to see her after the after-party. They agreed on the time they would meet, and everything seemed fine. I don't know if she was talking to 10 people at the same time, but that's beside the point. When the time they had agreed upon arrived, Ashton called his friend to let her know he would be a bit late, and she told him it was fine because she was just starting to get ready. At 10:15, Ashton called his friend again. But she didn't answer. Since he was going to her place anyway. He didn't worry too much about it and went to her house. When he arrived, he saw her car parked in front of the house, and the lights were on, indicating she was home. He knocked on the door several times, but she didn't answer. When she didn't open the door, he tried to look through the window and saw that the house was very messy, and there was a red liquid on the floor. However, this didn't arouse his suspicion because she had told him before that she was rearranging her house and working on it, so the mess was justified in his mind. After knocking on the door and calling her phone several times with no response, he left, thinking she might be upset with him for being late, asleep, or something ordinary had happened. He didn't think the situation could be bad, so he went home. The next morning, Ashton's friend entered the house and was shocked by a horrifying scene. Her friend was dead, her blood filling the room, and her head was almost severed from the number of stab wounds. It was later determined that she had been stabbed 47 times. When the police began investigating, they asked her neighbors if they had heard or seen anything unusual. The neighbors said they hadn't seen anyone but had heard screaming around 8:30 p.m., which they thought was from a party or something normal. The first person they investigated was her friend Ashton, the Hollywood star. He was the first person they brought in for questioning because his fingerprints were found on the door. When they asked him why they were there, he explained the details I mentioned earlier and justified the presence of his fingerprints. After a few more questions, the police were convinced he had nothing to do with the case and ruled him out as a suspect. The second person they brought in for questioning was Ashley's landlord, and after a few questions, it was clear he was also not involved. The police then started considering other theories, and something caught their attention. there were no signs of forced entry on the door. Meaning Ashley likely opened the door for her killer. For her to open the door to someone late at night meant she knew this person. So, who could it be? One of the people Ashley's friends mentioned to the police was Michael, the French man. Ashley had always complained about him, saying he was annoying and would bother her a lot, trying to get close to her and such things. However, even this person was not involved in the case. After months of investigations, the police finally identified a suspect, and that name was Michael Gargiulo. During the same period when the Los Angeles police were investigating Michael, they received a call from the Illinois State Police, who were investigating a cold case from 1993. The suspect in that case was a resident of Los Angeles named Michael Gargiulo. The case from Illinois also involved the murder of a girl named Tricia Pikachu in 1993, who was 18 years old at the time. On Friday, August 13, 1993, Tricia was having dinner with her friends to celebrate their high school graduation, as each of them was heading to different universities and starting new lives. At 1 a.m., Tricia dropped her friends off at their homes and was supposed to return to her own. She did make it home, but she didn't arrive alive. The first person to find her body was her father, who had gone out to walk the dog. The first thing he saw when he stepped outside was his daughter's body. Unfortunately, her condition was terrible. Her arm was broken, and she had been stabbed about 50 times. She was also holding her house key in her hand, indicating that the killer likely attacked her at her front door while she was trying to unlock it. According to her family, Tricia was a very kind and gentle person who had no enemies, so they couldn't suspect anyone or provide any names to the police. The police requested to question anyone who had contacted her before her death, and Michael Gargiulo was one of them. The police questioned him, and he told them that he had dropped her off at her house 2 days before her death. Her family knew him, and he used to visit their home, but there was nothing against him. When the police from the 2 states began comparing details and events, they noticed a very strong similarity and concluded that it couldn't be a coincidence. Michael became wanted in both states, and everyone was searching for him. The search for him took several months, but the police finally caught him. The first thing they did upon his arrest was request a DNA sample. But he refused, stating that he had no connection to the cases and would not provide a sample without a court or police order. The police didn't have the authority to compel him to provide a sample, nor did they have any concrete evidence against him, so they couldn't do anything. The police suspected that he was involved in the cases, but they had no proof. Therefore, they released him but began monitoring him. After some time, they discovered that he had fallen ill and was hospitalized. Once he was discharged, they secretly went to the hospital and requested a DNA sample. Finally, after a long wait, the results came back, showing that the DNA under Tricia's nails matched Michael Gargiulo's DNA. After this revelation, the police handling the case approached higher authorities to get an order to arrest Michael Gargiulo, arguing that they had a DNA match. However, due to the way the DNA was obtained, the higher authorities refused to issue an arrest warrant, citing the possibility of tampering or mishandling. The police responsible for the case were convinced that Michael was involved and tried their best to catch him but couldn't. After being denied the necessary authorization, they began investigating his past, hoping to find something else to aid them. During their investigation, they discovered that he was born in Illinois in 1976 and came from a large family with 7 siblings. Michael claimed that his siblings and father abused him when he was young, but this information couldn't be confirmed. In his teenage years, he was known to be a bully and had a short temper. One of his friends told the police that when Michael got angry, he would become extremely aggressive and lose all semblance of humanity. He had been arrested multiple times during his school years for charges like theft and car break-ins. He was also fascinated by the serial killer Ted Bundy, reading many books about him and forensic science, learning how bodies are examined for evidence. With all the knowledge he gained, he would boast to his friends that if the police ever caught him, they wouldn't be able to find any evidence against him because he would know how to get rid of everything. It was also found that after killing Tricia in 1993, he frequently visited her family, bringing gifts to her brother and family. Once, He spent 4 continuous hours with her brother, supposedly to open up and share his feelings, but he didn't say a word during those 4 hours. The source of this information was Trisha's family themselves. They were surprised by these behaviors and contacted the investigators to inform them. Unfortunately, until now, they haven't been able to catch him, and time has passed, and the cases remain unsolved. In 1997, the police arrested Michael on charges of car theft. At that time, they tried to make a deal with him, telling him that if he provided details about Trisha's case, they would help and reduce his sentence. However, he always refused to say anything. In 1998, Michael moved to Los Angeles with the aim of becoming a famous actor in Hollywood. Of course, he couldn't achieve this goal quickly, so upon arriving in Los Angeles, he worked at a bar but was fired shortly after for hitting one of the customers. His aggressive behavior extended to everyone, even to the women he dated. He would hit them, threaten them, and continually boast about his ability to kill anyone and hide all the evidence. During his time working at this place, he made friends. One day, a friend and co-worker asked him if he had ever killed anyone in his life. Strangely, Mike responded and said, "Yes, I killed a girl named Trisha in 1993. But because Mike was known for being a liar, aggressive, and a bully, no one believed him and assumed it was another one of his lies. His friend didn't think his statement was true. In 2000, he met Ashley, whom we mentioned earlier. She lived just one street away from his workplace. They met on the street when Ashley's car broke down, and Mike saw her and offered to help. From the moment he helped her, he began trying to date her and would spend his entire day outside her house, watching and waiting for her to come out. Despite all this evidence and all the years that have passed, the police still haven't been able to catch Mike. Fast forward to 2005, a woman named Maria Bruno, aged 32 and a mother of 4, had a falling out with her husband, resulting in a divorce. She moved to a new house by herself in Los Angeles. She mentioned to people that she chose this particular house because it was very safe and suitable for her and her 4 children, the eldest of whom was 5 years old. Just 10 days after moving into this supposedly safe house, her husband called 911, reporting that he found his wife murdered inside her home. When the police arrived and started the investigation, they discovered that she had been stabbed 17 times. The killer had broken into the house through the kitchen window, taken a knife from the kitchen, and committed the crime. It seemed likely that the perpetrator was left-handed, indicating he used his left hand in daily activities. Naturally, the first suspect was her husband. He was the one who called and reported the murder, and there were ongoing conflicts between them that led to their divorce. However, when they asked him why he was at her house, he told them he was talking to her about reconciling and getting back together. Things between them were improving, and they had even gone out to dinner the night before, trying to work things out and reorganize their lives. The police found a drop of Maria's blood in his car. When they asked him about it, he explained that she had cut her hand while they were leaving the restaurant where they had dinner. He even mentioned that some of the restaurant staff came to help and gave her a bandage. The police could verify this by asking the restaurant staff, who confirmed his story. After clearing him of suspicion, the police had no other suspects, and the case was on the verge of going cold, but her neighbors intervened just in time, telling the police about a man living across from her who had been acting very strangely around her, with these strange behaviors increasing shortly before her death. When asked for the man's name, the neighbors didn't know it, but they were able to describe his appearance. When the police sketched the description provided by the neighbors, the sketch resembled Mike Gargiulo. However, this sketch was not considered solid evidence, and without any tangible proof against anyone, the case remained unresolved with no further actions taken. Finally, 3 years after this incident, in 2008, came the decisive blow to Mike Gargiulo. In April 2008, a 26-year-old woman named Michelle suddenly woke up to find a stranger standing in her bedroom. He suddenly attacked her and began stabbing her. Although Michelle was physically weaker compared to Michael, she tried to defend herself, screaming and attempting to grab the knife to stop him from stabbing her. Unfortunately, he managed to stab her multiple times, and she started bleeding. However, despite this, Michelle gathered all her strength and kicked him hard enough to knock him to the ground. After that, he said, "I'm sorry," and left the room. The attacker thought she would die soon, but she didn't. She called her friend, who then called the ambulance, and they arrived just in time. While Michelle was defending herself and trying to stop the attacker, she managed to make him cut himself with his own knife, and his blood was left in her room. When the police collected the blood and analyzed it, it was identified as Michael Gargiulo's. Finally, Michael was officially arrested for attempting to kill Michelle, and he was also charged with the murders of the 3 previous victims he had killed over the past 15 years. The DNA was a 100% match, so they were able to charge him. Now that he was finally caught, you might think that the situation would be resolved and he would face justice. Unfortunately, the case was very complicated because his first victim was in Illinois and the others were in Los Angeles. This meant he had to attend different court sessions in each state since American law separates each state's jurisdiction. This caused delays in his trial, and Michael hired lawyers to prove his innocence. He even attempted to escape from prison. But his attempt failed. His defense team argued in court that he was not sane when he committed the crimes. They said this to try to reduce his sentence since he was already caught and couldn't deny the charges, but they were trying to lessen his punishment by claiming he wasn't aware of his actions. However, the court confirmed that he was fully aware and mentally sound. After gathering more than 3,600 pages of evidence against him, the trial began. They even brought in actor Ashton Kutcher, who was a friend of the second victim, to testify. The defense team argued that there was no concrete evidence against him in Ashley's case, claiming that all they had were random events linked together to implicate him, but no tangible proof. There was a lot of back and forth, and his trial was very difficult and lengthy. Despite all the arguments, the court insisted that he was the perpetrator of all 4 crimes and even suggested that there might be more victims, potentially up to 10. Finally, after nearly 28 years of waiting, the court sentenced him to death, but with a stay of execution. California has had a moratorium on the death penalty since 2006, meaning no one has been executed since then. He was sentenced to death and is currently in prison, where he could be executed at any moment. And finally, we come to the Q&A segment. Why did Mike kill the mother of 4 children, even though he was not in a relationship with her? Give us your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.